Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Anka Soloski. I'm a dietitian for a practice called Sound Dietitians. And today we are talking about some fun lunch and snack recipes. These recipes go well for adults, also for kiddos, and just some really fun recipes. But before we get started, I want to thank Skagit Regional Health for sponsoring this event, and then Stilly Valley Health Connections for hosting. Thank you, Christina, for doing all things video and audio. So if you guys at home have any questions, please send it in the chat, and Christina, you can interrupt me at any time. And then for those of you that are in person, just feel free to interrupt with any questions, comments. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So let me introduce the recipes and then we'll get started. So we're going to be making some pizza inspired stuffed zucchini boats. This is a take on your traditional pizza. This is a really great way to get kiddos to eat more vegetables while still having that familiar taste. And the reason I like this so much for lunch is I think this is a great recipe that tastes it tastes really good cold and hot. So if you don't have time to heat it up, it tastes good cold as well. We're also going to be making some fresh summer spring rolls with a lot of fresh ingredients, some tofu. We have a really nice sauce to pair with that. In terms of snacks, so these are going to be kind of our lunch ideas, right? In terms of snacks, we're going to be making some chia seed chocolate bites. So these are going to be like your protein balls. This is a really fun recipe that you can store for a while and just have on hand. And we're going to be making a garlic and herb whipped cottage cheese dip. So this is a really fresh herby dip that has a lot of protein. So it's a really great addition to, you could use it as a spread for a lunch, like a sandwich as well. So it's really versatile. But we're going to start with the zucchini boats. So I already have some of my zucchini already cut up and prepped. So basically I wash my zucchini. I'm going to cut off the ends just a little bit. I don't want to get too close to the middle. And then we're just going to cut this up down the middle, try to get as equal as possible. Using a spoon, we're going to be cutting around basically a border. So you want to leave an edge so that your toppings don't spill out, right? But we're going to be cutting out just the seeds, the inside. You don't necessarily need to use a knife for this. This is pretty soft. And we don't want to go too deep either because you don't want to have holes in the bottom of the boat. Otherwise your sauce and toppings could leak out. But you still want to get enough of the flesh out to where you have enough room for the sauce and the toppings, right? Okay, so I'm going to do the exact same thing with this other half. And you don't necessarily need to throw out the flesh. This goes really well in soups, stews. You could even use this, honestly, to make zucchini bread. Just cut it up real fine. Okay. All right, let me get rid of these insides. All right, so what I also like about this recipe is you can make everything from scratch, like your sauce, and prep your toppings from scratch if you want, or you could just use pre-made products to make it a little bit easier. So we're going to be doing kind of a mix of both today. So I have a couple of different ingredients here. We're going to start with some pizza sauce. So just went for jarred pizza sauce, but you could absolutely make your own. And we're just going to layer it, not too much, just because we want to have enough room for our toppings as well. Just layer it in the bottom here. And I have tried this recipe with a white sauce, and that works really well as well. You could also do a pesto. You could also skip the sauce altogether and then just focus on, you know, having your cheese as the kind of melty, more moist element, I would say. And this is a really great recipe to get kids involved because it's so easy to make, right? You just scoop out the zucchini flesh, which kids, I'm sure, love to do, right? And then just layer the ingredients, and you can customize this to whatever you want. We're going to be doing a vegetarian version today. And then I have some Italian seasoning, just some Italian herbs. I'm just going to sprinkle on top, just a little sprinkle, just to give it a little more flavor. We're also going to be topping this off with some fresh basil at the end. Okay. And then in terms of topping, so I have some canned mushrooms. You could use fresh mushrooms as well. I would say if you're going to be using fresh mushrooms, it would be best if you use them with other things and not putting too much of them because they can leave a lot of water. These guys are already cooked down, so they're not going to be leaving behind too much water. But for these guys, I actually cut them up a little bit more, like I chopped them, just so that it's a little bit easier to eat. So we're just going to sprinkle these in, layer them, layer all our ingredients. You could absolutely add meat to this to get some protein, some extra protein. We're going to have some protein from the cheese. You could also add some like crumbled tofu as well. That would work really well in this. Okay, I got some olives. So these are canned olives. Again, you could use whatever types of olives you like. I actually really like these black ones for pizza. I think it works really, really well. Yeah.
Kalamata olives be too salty, you think?
Would Kalamata olives be too salty? I think as long as you're either using a pizza sauce that is lower in sodium or you make your own and you don't add too much salt to it, I think it would work well to give you that salty element. I think it would also depend, like if you wanted to put any meat or anything like that, that might add some more salt. So just balancing out those flavors so you're not getting too salty of a finished product. Okay, and then we have some red onions. Just dice these up pretty fine. I'm just going to sprinkle these in as well. And another nice thing about this recipe is it actually keeps pretty well in the fridge. So this could be something to meal prep, just make at the beginning of the week, and just have for the rest of the week as well. It works really well that way too. I haven't tried freezing this, so I'm not entirely sure how it would react frozen. It's possible if you cook it entirely, it could freeze pretty well, just because the zucchini at that point is pretty dry. So, but I wouldn't recommend just doing it raw, like freezing it raw. Okay, so we got our veggies, our sauce, our Italian seasoning. Next, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to sprinkle some mozzarella cheese. Yes, this is mozzarella cheese. We're just gonna do a little bit just to get it a little ooey and gooey. And then once our zucchini boats are nice and soft after being in the oven, we're gonna leave them 15-20 minutes, maybe a little bit more, we'll see. After that, I'm gonna sprinkle on a little bit more cheese, put them under the broil so the cheese gets nice and brown. But I do want a little bit of cheese right now, just so that these other ingredients kind of bind together, right? Like it does with pizza. What other toppings would you guys add to something like this?
Cherry tomatoes.
Cherry tomatoes, yeah.
Would that substitute for the sauce?
You could substitute cherry tomatoes for the sauce because once you bake them, they do get a little, jammy, saucy. Yeah, totally. I would add some Italian sausage for sure. Yeah. Okay, so that's how much we're gonna do now. And then we're gonna sprinkle some more cheese later, but I'm gonna throw these in the oven. The oven has been preheating at 375 degrees. So I'm gonna throw these in for about 15 minutes. Okay. Let me set my timer real quick. Okay. And then, obviously, depending on your oven, you might need to leave it in for a little bit more. I'm just gonna try to pierce them with a knife to see if they're done, basically. But zucchini is one of those ingredients. It doesn't take a whole lot to cook it. Yeah, so let me clean up just a little bit. And we're going to move on to our spring rolls. Okay. All right, so for the spring rolls, we're going to be using rice paper. That's going to be what we're rolling all of the ingredients in. This you can find at Asian markets. That's the easiest way to find them. You will likely be able to find them in other grocery stores as well in the Asian section. So as you can see, these guys are pretty stiff. Okay, that one just broke, so it can break like that. So we want to moisten them so that they soften. Basically, we'll dip them in water. As the rice paper sits, it becomes soft and sticky as well. So just being mindful when you're making this recipe that it can stick to things and then they can also stick to each other. So as you're preparing them, just trying to keep them a little bit separate so that they don't stick to each other. This you can also cut up and fry to get like fried rice crisps. So that's, if you ever go to like Asian restaurants and they have like either strips of like something that's white and crispy or they kind of look like fried noodles, like that's what they're using. They're using rice noodles, frying them in oil, and then they just puff up. And that process takes like maybe 10 seconds. So it can be a really nice addition if you want something crispy for like an Asian salad or something like that. So I'm just gonna retire this guy somewhere over here. We're not gonna be using that one. And I'm just gonna bring over a plate. I'm gonna add some water to this. And you could use, if you have like a bowl that is pretty shallow, you can use that as well. It just gets a little awkward if you're trying to use an actual bowl, trying to like bend it so that it becomes entirely wet. But before we start with that, so I've cut up some of the ingredients here already. And Christina, do you need me to move at all? Can people see? Okay, cool. So our ingredients are gonna be yellow bell pepper, which I already cut up, some carrots, which I already cut up, red bell pepper, cabbage. I have some basil here that's not listed on your ingredients, but it's something that I like to add just to get some extra flavor and freshness. We have some microgreens. I believe this is a mix. It kind of looks like maybe broccoli and kale, microgreens. And then as you can see on your recipe, there's no protein listed, but you could add whatever protein you want. So we're going to be doing tofu today just to keep it plant-based, but you could absolutely add cooked shrimp. You could add cooked chicken to this. Those are some really good options. Or you could just keep it just like a veggie roll and then just have some protein on the side, right? But for the cabbage, we're going to cut this up as fine as I can get it. So I just have my fourth of a cabbage, a red cabbage. Just going to cut it into strands. And then there's 4 of you, so we'll be making 4. So I think that should be enough. So the thing with this recipe is you don't want to over load the rice paper because then it's hard to fold. So just thinking about that in terms of not preparing too many ingredients depending on how many you want to make, right? So I'm just going to chop this up a little bit more just to make it easier. Like when you bite into it, so you're not getting a huge strand of cabbage. And when I have something like a roll or a burrito type situation where I'm putting multiple different ingredients into it, I like to keep all of my ingredients on a sheet pan so that they're all together. It makes it a little bit easier for cleanup as well. And then for the bell pepper, so I have half here. I'm just going to cut it into thin, almost like matchstick type shapes. I did the same thing with the yellow bell pepper and also the carrots. They're pretty thin, right? So you get a little bit of crunch texture, but you're also not, it's not like you're biting into a whole carrot, right? And in terms of veggies, you could use whatever veggies you like for this. You know, traditionally, in Vietnamese culture, they would use some type of, you know, lettuce, possibly a carrot, maybe bell pepper, and then some herbs as well. Most often you'll see like basil and mint.
Seems like bean sprouts are often offered, you know, in Vietnamese restaurants, but I don't know, there's always sort of a thing hanging over bean sprouts, you know, are they safe?
Yeah, so bean sprouts are served a lot at Vietnamese restaurants. And are they safe? So as long as you keep them refrigerated, they should be safe. They're, you know, one of those foods where there's an increased risk for foodborne illness if not handled properly. So I would recommend, you know, if you're buying them from the store, washing them really well before eating and just keeping them refrigerated. Yeah. Okay, so I have all of my ingredients here. We're gonna start by, well, first let me get rid of this knife. And then we're going to dip our paper so you can see it's nice and hard. We're gonna dip it in our water. So the whole point is to get it as wet as you can on all sides, and you only need to dip it about 15, maybe 30 seconds. So it's already starting to soften, but as it actually sits on the cutting board, it's going to soften a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to start with cabbage. And I like to, you know, similar to a burrito, adding your ingredients on the lower half, right? About a third. So you have enough room to actually roll it into like a log. Okay, got my sprouts. Gonna do the bell pepper. This is such a colorful dish. I've seen them referred to as rainbow rolls as well, right? Because all the colors of the rainbow, you could add any ingredients you want to achieve that effect. And then I'm going to be adding a couple of leaves of basil in here. I don't have any mint, but you could totally add mint. And then this is just extra firm, it's actually high protein, extra firm tofu from Trader Joe's. So it's already, the water is already removed from it. So it makes it a little bit easier. And I'm just gonna put that on top. So you guys can see like this is pretty pretty malleable at this point. It's pretty sticky too. So I like to kind of fold it on the sides first. And I would highly recommend if you have something other than a white cutting board, it would probably work a little bit better because then you could actually see where the edges are. And then we're just gonna roll it. Got a carrot sticking out. And then as this sits, it'll become softer and more sticky, and then eventually it'll dry out. So this is what it looks like. So you have all of your, you can basically see all of the ingredients. And I like to put it on just some parchment so that it doesn't stick to your plate. And we're gonna repeat that 3 more times. Or actually, yeah, we'll just do that. You guys can have a little bit more. I also have some in the fridge that I made before class as well. So again, like this is still pretty hard. You can hear it. And just as it sits, it'll soften up. I would recommend like don't necessarily leave it in here because otherwise it will just turn to mush in your bowl. Okay. And this is another one where you could prep multiple, just keep it in your fridge for a lunch or even a snack too. This would work as a snack as well. Just trying to keep a little bit of distance between them. So maybe using like a bigger Tupperware where you could space them out a little bit more.
Would you say these are about 6 inches long?
Are these about 6 inches long? Yeah, maybe 5 to 6. I don't think this one says 22 centimeters. If anybody can convert that to inches, I think that's the how wide these guys are. 8.6 inches diameter. Yeah. So, you know, I would say probably like 5 to 6 just with how we're folding them. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to make one more just because there's more in the fridge as well. I just wanted to demonstrate how to fold these. And rice paper. So this you could just leave raw like this to where you're not cooking it, but you could also do like a different filling with the rice paper and pan fry them in a little bit of oil, and then they get that nice like egg roll type crispiness to them. Yeah. So you'll see in Vietnamese restaurants, sometimes they have like the fried rolls, but typically they don't use egg roll wrappers. They will use rice paper instead, because that's more traditional for them. And this is not quite, can't really fold this yet, so I'm just gonna let this hang out a little bit. Sometimes you could even just add a little bit of extra water just with your fingers to kind of soften it up a little bit more. If you get really quick with the folding technique, you could even put one in the water as you're folding another one, just to save a little bit of time as well.
In 1998, I happened to be in Illinois with my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
We went to what I would consider a very nice restaurant. Staff dressed in native costume. We got to talking, and the next day, one of them picked her up on their motorcycle, which was taking her out to Illinois, and she went and learned how to make these.
Oh.
And she said the surprising thing is like there's no refrigeration. At that time, there was little refrigeration.
In 98, there wasn't any refrigeration.
Yeah. In the restaurant, so that they would prepare them all and just have them out, and then when if they wanted to deep fry them, they do it, you know, right before they were served.
Okay.
So if you went to a Vietnamese restaurant in Vietnam, be a cage with snakes in it, there'd be an aquarium with fish, chickens. And that's how they kept their cuisine fresh.
Okay, so this was in Vietnam? Okay, so in Vietnam, they would keep all of their ingredients basically live to keep them fresh because there was no refrigeration back then. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before, and I realized for some of these, I forgot to put the microgreens in. Yeah, so 2 of them will not have microgreens. I do apologize. So let's make the sauce real quick and then we'll transition to our snacks. I just want to check the timer. Okay, so we have about 12 seconds left on the timer. So let me just check on these. If I can find, there we go. Okay, oven mitts. And this as well for when we need it later. All right, so I'm just gonna pierce them in here so I don't have to take the. Okay. I think they could go for another couple minutes. Just they're kind of soft on the thinner edge, but not quite on the ends. So I'll leave them in for like 4 minutes while we make the sauce for the spring rolls. So this sauce is, its base is either peanut or almond butter. I had almond butter at home, so that is what I used. You could probably do it with sun butter as well. So I think we're just gonna double the sauce recipe just for ease. My trick for when you're measuring out any type of sticky ingredient, whether that is your nut butter or honey, I always like to add a little bit of oil to my measuring utensil, just so that it slides out a lot easier, and hopefully it'll do that right now. Sometimes it doesn't always work for whatever reason, but hopefully it will now. So this is just going to be half a cup of almond butter. Again, this would be really, really yummy with peanut butter as well. And it did stick a little bit, but not too bad. Sorry for those at home for the scraping noise. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. All right, and then we're going to be adding 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. So this one I haven't even opened yet.
Co-ops have, peanut machines where you can do your own grinding. And it seems like, would that be better than, say, the hydrogenated peanut butter that is so thick?
Yeah, so some stores have the grinding machines where you can make your own nut butters, and are those better than the ones with extra hydrogenated oils and processed? And I would say honestly I prefer the like freshly ground natural peanut butter to those. Ingredient wise they look a lot better, they also taste a lot better in my opinion. I always recommend those in my practice to patients. It's going to be a better product overall, and you're not getting the added sugar as well. It's just ground up peanuts, and you could absolutely just do that at home too in a food processor. It does take a whole lot more time, but honestly, I don't think there's anything better than fresh peanut butter. Yeah. So I'm just going to mix this. So I added some rice vinegar, honey, and then the sesame oil as well. And this should thin out. So it's going to look like, am I in a good spot or do I need to move? Okay, cool. It's going to look like it's clumping up but it'll thin out eventually as the liquids kind of mix in with the almond butter as well. Okay, that's nice and thick and creamy. So that's going to be our sauce to dip the spring rolls in. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of water just to thin it out, just a smidge, just so it's a little bit easier to dip. And that is the timer for the zucchini boats. Okay. All right, that's our sauce. So I'm just gonna leave this over here. Okay. So let me bring out the zucchini boats. I'll actually bring them over here. Ooh. Okay. So we're just going to be adding some extra cheese so that it gets nice and bubbly. And then I'm going to have to pay really close attention to the broiler at this point. So we'll start on the whipped cottage cheese dip, but I'll have to focus a little bit more to make sure that these don't burn. Yeah, and mozzarella is a pretty, neutral cheese, I would say. It works well with a lot of flavors, and then you get that melty cheese pool, right? But you could use whatever cheese you want. You could do cheddar, you could do like a blend, you could even do like shredded goat cheese as well. That would work really well for this. Okay. And I would say, like, for this recipe, the measurements that you have there are kind of an estimate, right? You can add however many toppings you want. Measure with your heart as well. I'm gonna throw these back in, and then we're gonna turn on the broil. Okay, so while that is going, I'm gonna start on our cottage cheese dip. So first ingredient, cottage cheese, an entire container, so you don't have to think about it, you don't have to measure it out. Yeah, so what percentage fat is this one specifically? So this is a full fat, so it's a 4%. You could do a low fat or a non-fat. I find with the full fat, it gives it a more creamier effect, right? Okay, I got that. I have 1 clove of garlic that I just sliced just a little bit. The blender is going to do most of the work. You could also use a food processor for this as well. I have about a tablespoon of fresh thyme. So I tried to pick it off as much as I could from the stems. I didn't worry too much about the stems at the end, just because those are softer and the blender will just take care of them as well. And then we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of the lemon juice. So I already squeezed this. And this will just brighten it up, give it a little bit of freshness, and then some basil leaves. So this is about 6 of them. You want to use larger ones just so you get that extra flavor as well. And before we start that, I just want to look at these guys. Okay. How do I turn? Ah, there we go. Okay. So what do I do with my lid? Right here. We're going to blend this So it's gonna get a little loud. I'm sorry for those at home. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna mix this around a little bit, help it out. This would probably be a little bit easier to do in a food processor, I would say, depending on your blender too. Let's try this. Okay, I'll just some technical difficulties. That's okay. It is blending things. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of water to this just to help it out a little bit. Just a tiny bit. This is about a tablespoon, I believe. We're gonna try again. Ah, there we go. Okay. So this is nice and creamy. There's still going to be a little bit of texture from the cottage cheese, but for the most part, it is going to be nice and creamy. And like I mentioned at the beginning of class too, this is going to be a high protein dip as well. So you could use this for lunch as well and kind of add some veggies, maybe some crackers or things like that, and kind of make a whole lunch out of it. And this would be one of a protein source. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think this blender is a little tired. Okay, that looks good. So I'm just gonna taste this real, okay. Before I do that, I'm just gonna pull these out. These are nice and done. Perfect timing. So this is what, where do you want me? Okay, this is what the zucchini boats look like. I'm just gonna leave them over here. I want these to cool down a little bit before we add the basil, because otherwise the basil is just gonna wilt a little bit. So let me try this, see if it needs anything. Oh, I forgot one thing, but I'm just gonna give this blender a rest. Yeah. Christina, do you know how to? Okay. Okay, I guess this is not working, so we're just gonna have to scoop it out this way. So a lot of technical difficulties today. I do apologize. This, you know, things don't always work out. You know, it's not a TV show, unfortunately, where everything's perfect. We don't have second takes. That's not how it works. But that's okay. Yes, if we did it at home, it would fly all over. Whenever I do hands-on kids cooking classes and we use a blender, I always tell the kids, I always ask them, what is the most important thing about using a blender? What is the most important step? And they never guess it. And it's always put the lid on and make sure that it's secure so you don't have to wash the ceiling. Okay, that's good enough. I'll figure out what to do with this. I forgot to add some black pepper. So I'm just gonna add it here. It's about half a teaspoon, so about that much. And we're just gonna blend it in. And that's a really pretty color, nice and light green. Okay, so that's our dip. You could add like a little bit of olive oil, make it a little pretty. I'm just gonna leave that right there. And then just looking at the recipe, so you have about 15 grams of protein per serving for this dip, which is pretty good. I usually tell my patients to aim for about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, and then anywhere from 10 to 20 for a snack. That's a good amount as well. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our last recipe, and that is going to be our protein balls. So we're gonna start with some oats. So these are just rolled oats, old-fashioned ones. We're gonna do 2 cups of these. Add them to our food processor. One. And 2. And then we're gonna add about 2 cups of unsweetened coconut. So this can be a good recipe for kiddos to take to school. I would say, like, if you have any kids or grandkids and you want to make this, just check what rules they have at school. Some schools are completely nut-free. Some schools are just peanut-free. Coconut is considered a tree nut, so just checking that. You could absolutely just avoid using the coconut altogether and just keep the chia seeds with the oats. Or you could also add some other nuts as well. That would work well in this recipe. So just doing about two cups of the flaked coconut. So again, this is unsweetened coconut as well. It really says on the package, nothing added. So it's just coconut. And then we're gonna blend this until it kind of is more coarse than a flour, but still a little bit like a flour. A little bit more. Okay, that's pretty good. So there's still some texture there, but it's a little fine so that it'll blend well with the other ingredients. Okay, so next I'm going to add, for this recipe, I did have some sun butter left over. So I'm just gonna add to this. This is already dirty. It'll be good to use. So just a half cup of nut butter of your choice. Again, like if you're making this for school, just check to see what rules. Sun butter is typically the preferred butter of choice for most schools, just because a sunflower allergy is pretty rare compared to a peanut or a tree nut allergy. Okay, so we have about half a cup of our sun butter. And then we're gonna add about half a cup of honey as well. And I like the addition of honey to this recipe because it gives it kind of a floral note, right? Depending on the honey that you use. And it provides that stickiness that's a little bit better than maple syrup, just that binding everything together. And this recipe makes quite a bit, makes about 30 snack balls. So, half a cup seems like a lot of honey, but when you split it by 30, it's not that much. Okay. And then about half a cup of chia seeds. So I'm gonna estimate this. I have a third cup here, so I'll do third in a little bit. So chia seeds are going to give you protein, also omega-3 fats, a really great source of that. And some soluble fiber. So this is a really good recipe if there's any, issues with going to the bathroom. This chia seeds can help promote regular bowel movements. Okay. And then we're gonna add, if I can cut this open, about half a cup of dark chocolate chips. So these are just going to bind with everything else. Okay. And then I'm gonna add some vanilla. I'm actually just gonna measure with my heart for this one, because that's how you measure vanilla. You measure it with your heart. And a little bit of salt, just to kind of cut the sweetness. That's it. So we're gonna blend these up as well. Okay. While it does that, I'm gonna grab a plate and a spoon. Okay. And depending on your food processor, you might need to, scrape it down, mix it up a couple of times. But this is looking pretty good. I'm just gonna give it like one more whirl. And the chocolate chips are going to stay, pretty whole. They're gonna give a little bit of a crunch element, but you could absolutely use just cocoa powder or even melt the chocolate chips as well. Okay. That's pretty good. So this is nice and sticky. If you find that your ingredients are a little too dry, you can always add a little bit of water to this to make it more like a dough where you could actually roll it, right? So again, this is going to give you some protein, right, from the chia seeds and also the nut butter, sun butter, whatever you're using. You're also going to get some carbs from the oats and the chocolate chips, some healthy fats from the coconut, the nut butter, also from the chocolate too. Chocolate has some healthy fats as well. Some flavor from the vanilla. And again, you can customize this to whatever you want, whatever ingredients you want. So these ones you can throw in the freezer and just take out, if you're at home, take out 1 or 2 at a time, eat them. You can keep them in the fridge. Snack balls typically will keep quite a while, especially in the freezer, for months for sure. And again, like these could be just a snack on their own because they have all of those nutrients that our body needs, protein, fats, carbs, right? Any questions about this recipe or comments?
If you wanted an instant gratification.
Yeah.
To wait.
So you can freeze them, or you could just eat them like that, like this. That's what we're going to be doing today. As if you had like a softer dough where it would be falling apart, you would kind of have to freeze them. But this is pretty good to where we don't necessarily have to do that. You could also freeze them and then roll them in melted chocolate as well. Like that would also be another way to kind of transform this into more of a dessert. Yeah. Any questions from anybody at home? Okay. Yeah, so what I wanted with this class is to give you a couple of different options that you could add to different meals, right? Like the dip, you could just eat it with veggies and crackers and maybe add something else to give it a little bit more protein. You could use the dip as a spread for a sandwich. You could even use the dip as a dip for anything else, like pizza, or even like the zucchini boats, right? These balls you could add if you have kiddos or grandkids at home, you could add them to a lunch along with other things. I work with parents and kiddos, and oftentimes they, do kind of like a bento box type lunch where they're adding a variety of different components to the meal. So this could definitely be one of those components. Yeah, the spring rolls, you can customize them with whatever, fillings you want, whatever protein you want. They're nice and easy, and they keep really well in the fridge as well. Nice and fresh for summer, especially in, when it's really hot outside, you don't really feel like eating something heavy. This will give you a balanced lunch with just that freshness and lightness. Yeah. Okay, I have a couple more balls to roll, but I think we can set up to start eating here. Christina, do you want me to move everything to the front so we could do one last view? Okay, the balls as well. Okay. All right, so we have our, oh, and I forgot, let me cut up our basil real quick for our zucchini boats. So I'm just gonna do ribbons just to make it nice and easy. You could add whatever herbs you want to this. I just had a lot of basil. That's how I bought a big container of it. I'm just gonna sprinkle it on top.
When you were mentioning bento boxes, there's a reel on Facebook where a principal talks about kids coming with a number of containers that they cannot open.
Oh, okay. So with
It was really interesting. I mean, a bento box, they just have basically one. But he was saying when a parent sends it with Lunchables, you have to get the Lunchable open, you have to get the salami open, you have to get the crackers open, you have to get the juice box open, and he's
Yeah.
like, they are kindergartners.
Yeah, so with bento boxes, there's always the issue of can the kids actually open them? Like containers and containers. Yeah, that is definitely an issue, right? And I think that's up to parents too to assess, like, can their kiddos open? Because if you have 30 kids that need help opening containers, that's a lot of work for teachers that are already underpaid. Okay, so we got our zucchini boats, we got our dip, I got some veggies here, I'll have some crackers as well, and our snack balls. And that is our spread of what we made today. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys enjoy the taste of the food. I hope for those of you at home, you try some of these recipes if they sound good, and stay tuned for more classes in the future. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.